Hello, everyone. Good evening. So, the question of how I would respond if a client became verbally aggressive and confrontational during a session. So, I've actually ran into this experience. I had a session, an individual session with a kiddo from kindergarten, and actually I was picking him up when it was time for session. I was picking up from his class, and I noticed that he was a little bit off. He was a little bit angry, a little bit upset of what happened in the yard and whatnot. Nonetheless, I was trying to ask him, try to probe, see what were the reasons why he was feeling upset. What are some things that I can do to help him. But before I was even able to ask those types of questions, he expressed his anger. He kept walking away from me. He kept, let's say, saying, leave me alone and all that stuff. And again, what I did in that experience is, all you got to do is really listen, right? You're still there. You're still there to meet them for a session. However, you might have to respond a little bit differently. Instead of engaging in that current aggression that they're feeling, just basically be there, be present, but don't feed into it, is what I'm trying to say. Because sometimes too, if you feed into their aggression, you could end up amplifying it. It could increase, right? And the whole point uh, of that situation is you want to de-escalate. So what are some ways you can de-escalate, right? So I started asking him, hey, do you want to go get a drink of water? Do you want to take a walk before we have session? And those were some of the options that I, gave to him. And, we did get some water. I gave him some time. I said, hey, do you want to sit on the bench, rest your head a little bit? Took like 2 minutes, rested his head, came back to me. The whole point was to basically just engage in de-escalation. That's how I would uh, interact with a person that is in a current state of, aggression or fury. If they're angry. Moving forward, what are some transferable skills that I would bring to practicum, and how would that help me for social work practice? So some of the skills that I have is kind of like the one I was saying, planned ignoring. Not as in you ignore the client, but you ignore the behaviors that are currently being displayed by them. Any negative behaviors. If there's anger, if there's sadness, you don't want to really engage in it too much, because then that could, like I said, it can worsen, it can increase, right? The whole point is to try to redirect them to bring them back to the present state. Let's say if there's a certain topic that we're talking about, could be a sensitive topic, right? You do want to acknowledge what they're feeling, right? So that's another thing too. You want to acknowledge their current state of their feeling. If they're feeling upset, they're feeling sad, let them know that you understand. You understand why they could be feeling upset, why they can be feeling sad or angry. Um, but not necessarily say, you shouldn't be saying this. If they're verbally aggressive to you, which it could happen, you don't want to basically tell them like, hey, you shouldn't say this. Hey, be careful of what you say. Again, because that can intensify the current behavior being, like I said, displayed by the client. Another thing you can do, or another thing, sorry, that I also bring in there is positive reinforcement. That's sometimes what is necessary. Not sometimes, it is what is necessary for clients, right? Verbal praise. Verbal praise goes a long way. Letting them know that they're doing really well. Letting them know that any little change that they're making to themselves is going to receive some credit. I'm giving them that credit. And honestly, that can go a long way for clients, right? Another thing too, de-escalation strategies. Again, offering them or letting them know of the coping strategies that, we can engage in together, kind of meditate, breathe together, right? Take a walk. And again, acknowledge what they're feeling, but not necessarily uh I guess question, why are you behaving like this? Why are you behaving like that? We have to make sure that what they're feeling is valid. Just sort of teach alternatives to how they can present those emotions, right? And lastly, what personal or professional qualities do I feel support my success to practicum? Well, some of the qualities that I have is that I'm very I'm very knowledgeable on different cultures, very knowledgeable on different languages. I've worked in as an RBT, registered behavior technician, and there I've worked with people of many races, many ethnicities, you know, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Asians, Hispanic, Latinos, white people. I would say that I'm very knowledgeable, and you know, me knowing that, I can sort of be more understanding of their cultures and their traditions and say things more carefully, because there's certain things we can say to certain groups of people and there's certain things that we cannot say. So modifying what we say, what we ask when we're trying to, find solutions to the problem the client is facing. And what are some areas I would like to grow in? Well, I would say making sure that my role, having the client respect my role as a professional. Sometimes I may come off too friendly. I may come off, because of that rapport building. So I just need to emphasize, that I'm here to support them, not necessarily their friend, but a person that is going to be there to assist them in, like I said, finding solutions for their problems or finding solutions for whatever predicament they're currently in.